Good morning mpenzi mtazamaji wa kipindi cha Nuru ya Asubuhi on Mizpah Tv, where we keep the fire of the altar burning 247. It's a pleasure to have you on board. Thank you for choosing us this beautiful morning. And I can see Clinton and so hello Mizpah TV, watching with my beautiful queen of mine, K-Res. I hope I've pronounced it right. Thank you so much, Clinton, for watching, and may God bless you so very much. Today we said it is a Tuesday, and with a Tuesday, we get to talk about matters that affect the life of every single individual Christian life. We get to talk about those issues that affect us. We get to talk about our faith. We get to talk about our struggles, our achievements, our accomplishments, our visions, our dreams. We get to talk about that. And also the instructions that God has given to us. We bring in men of God, we bring in counselors, we bring in experts in different fields, and today is no exception. Today we have a doctor with us in the studio. She is Dr. Sabina Muchemi, and she is in the education sector. We are so much honored to have her today. And remember, our topic of today is on discouragement. Are you there and you feel discouraged, you know? And I also tend to believe there's someone who is discouraged but is not even aware that they are discouraged. So we'll give you some of those issues that you may check on so that you can know that, hey, by the way, ni kama niko discouraged. That is what we'll be talking about today. And also remember, our SMS line is on your screen, 0799-200-100. And also on our Facebook page, we are coming to you live on Facebook and also on YouTube, so you can go check and share the link with as many people as you can so that they can also be encouraged. So let's get into the show of today, and with expectations as well. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, I thank God.
Karibu sana Mizpah TV.
Thank you.
And to Nuru ya Asubuhi.
Asante.
And today we're talking about discouragements. You know, and that is a term so many, I'm sure everyone has come across in their life. There's those who are struggling to write it when we were growing up. It is okay. And so that is what we are talking about. And you look very beautiful.
Thank you, thank you.
So you can start us off by telling us what a discouragement is in a nutshell.
For me, I would call discouragement as a feeling that you get when you have worked hard in your own definition, but you are not seeing the results.
Oh, worked hard in your own
definition. But you are not seeing the results that you expected from whatever action you are doing. So if you are a student and maybe you are studying and your results are bad, so you feel discouraged because maybe by your own definition, whatever you are doing was really working hard. And if you are Christian and you are waiting upon God for something and you've been trying to live that holy life, quote unquote, because it's your own definition. So you feel like God has not done what you expected. Because some people even put goals and objectives and there is something they're waiting upon from God as a reward, which sometimes is not right. But that kind of feeling that you've done something right, you have worked towards something, but you are you have not seen the results, so you get less enthusiastic about it. You lose energy, and you are no like as zealous as you were. Yeah,
and so I like the way you're putting it in your own definition.
Yes.
So this discouragement sometimes is we bring it upon ourselves.
Yes.
With the too much expectation that we have.
Sometimes so.
Wow. So we need to check on our expectations.
Yes.
Awesome. And so this aspect where you get to find that there are people who maybe as they are defining it, according to them, they are really working hard. According to them, they are having their sleepless nights, just working hard to make sure they attain. But they are continuing to pursue it, but they don't feel like they are getting it. They can't say they are discouraged, but with their actions, they show it. So someone who is watching at home, what are some of those things that people can look at and to maybe define that, by the way, I am really discouraged in life?
Okay, sometimes it's the kind of energy that you had maybe at the start. So as you embarked on your journey, whatever journey it is, maybe I can break it because like I told you from education sector, I'll maybe borrow a lot from that area. But as a student, let's say you have been working hard and your aim is to improve your grades. But as you work hard and the exam comes and you have failed, your grades have not improved, you realize that now you are no longer energetic, you don't want to spend many hours on books like you did before, and that kind of thing. That's slowing down. Even if maybe you have not defined it for yourself, but that is a sign already that if you are not yet there being discouraged, you're heading to discouragement. You're almost there. And then as a Christian, there are some things that you do and you are expecting God to answer. You all pay you back, which is wrong. And then he doesn't come at that time when you are expecting him and the like. So for me, I would say sometimes people get discouraged, but the causes are because of the kind of goals they set. Sometimes they are not right. So let me give an example of a Christian. Here is a girl, or let me think of a young man because we are lady.
Okay.
But there are some standards set by men, and people translate them to be standards of God. So, and these standards are set by either you or other people. Like a young man deciding that by 27, I must have been married, settled, with one boy. They even have a definition, the kind of child they'll get with a son, followed with a girl, and they're like, okay, you see, they have set time. They have set even the kind of kids they'll get and all that. Who said that? Is that God setting or is it you? So this man now goes to church and he's very serious with God. He preaches in and out, and he does everything that he thinks to be godly. And then he clocks 27, and every girl he's been approaching has been saying no. So this gentleman, remember, he set himself a time limit, 27. He set himself other goals, but were they godly? Was it godly? So now he wants God to come and fit. But now that I've been doing it right for God, God has to do it. But you know he doesn't seek, because the Bible tells us if we ask something that is according to the will of God, that will be done for us. So you want God to fit into your plans, but you've not inquired of God to know what he expects or what are his will or his will for you. You know. So with that kind of limit, so what do you expect of this young man by 27? He will feel less energetic. You ask him to go out there to evangelize and he's not as zealous as before. You ask him to be involved in church activities, he's feeling like God has failed him. But you see, this discouragement, because you feel discouraged about continuing with God and the like, would you really blame it on God, who is supposed to have answered the prayer, or would you blame it on the wrong setting of the goal? You see that kind of thing, where you have not known what is the will of God, you have not known his standards, you set yours, and you expect God to fit in them. You know, that kind of thing. So that's one for a Christian. And then again, for our day-to-day lives, there are many things, again, we set goals wrongly. Our expectations are like, I always tell people as a Christian and as a scientist and an academician and researcher, that you've got to know the difference between a miracle and reality. I, as a Christian, I believe God can, as we sit here, fill our stomachs and we are full. But the reality on the ground, when we are no longer talking of a miracle, you know, God can do it. The miracle can happen. But the reality without a miracle, he expects that since he has provided the rains and we have harvest and the like, you should wake up and go and cook and eat. You see, that kind of thing. So those are some things that make people, because like here I am working, that now I'm farming, for example, and I have only 1 acre of land. I am setting goals that I'm going to work hard. I'll do everything possible on this farm so that by the end of the season, I'll be able to buy an aeroplane. You see, how much do I expect this lad to give me? So those are two things. Reality and science has it that it can give me only so much. But miracle is another thing. So as you set your goals, are you working on a miracle or are you working on reality and the like? So if it is not a miracle, wake up, seek to know from those people who are informed. If I do an acre of land, what do I expect? So that by the end of the season, you do not get discouraged. You get to know that I was expecting only 3 bags. I got them. And I was expecting this kind of, and all that. But if you're working on a miracle now, that's a different area. So get to know what are you working with and the like. If you are a student out there and you are putting a lot of hours into your books, how are you reading? Have you first sat down to listen to the teacher as he or she teaches you? Have you grasped the concept? Or are you reading and not understanding and doing nothing?
And just still continuing reading. And
you see, putting hours. You have to come to reality. That unless now here, God opens your mind and gives you a miraculous thing, you've not understood the concept. So those are some of the things that make people not achieve the goals, because their goals are unrealistic. They don't know whether they're working on miracles or reality, and they don't seek out to know the expected outcome, so that when it comes, it's not a shock and it is not a discouragement.
Wow, those are very great examples, actually, and those are the day-to-day things that we get to face. Because you may find it out even in a situation of a worker, an employee. You know, maybe they're trusting that they're putting on the work for that promotion to come. But at the end of the day, there's someone else who has more character than them, and so the boss anasema, as much as you're doing that, kuna vile you have not yet attained what we want. Wow, that is so good. And so you've mentioned very well that sometimes the problem is the goals that we set.
Yes.
And so allow me to ask, because we'll come back and get also to handle, to deal with how we can deal with the disappointment, with the discouragements when we come after the break. But how do we get to make sure we are setting out good goals?
Yeah, so it depends on the field that you're working with. Let me start with the Christian aspect.
Okay.
Before you set a goal, learn to know what God, the Word of God says about it. Okay. In fact, in the Bible, in the book of Psalms, it tells us to have a lot of that work, that the book of this word should not leave our mind and our lives and the like. So it means it's like you should know and know it well. Let me give you an example of something that looked so good. This time when David was going for the Ark of the Covenant, and here is Uzzah, and sees that the Ark is tilting. So he reaches out so that he supports it, so that it doesn't fall, and God strikes him dead. Now, if this man, let us assume, if this man did not know the law of God, and what God had said about the Ark of Covenant, we would pass it that he was doing very well. He was doing a godly act. He was helping. How do you allow the Ark of God to touch the ground? You know all that. So, if you don't know the word, if he did not know what God had said about the Ark of God, who had the right to touch, who had the right to do all that, and how it was to be carried, then he would have really been doing good. But when you read the Word of God, you realize that God had already set out rules on how the Ark of the Covenant was to be carried, to be moved from one place to another, and the like. And they were fading from A to Z. You see that kind of thing? So now you understand, okay, now I see why God struck him dead. What do I mean? This man, I believe, he did not, and if he knew, he had forgotten. Because if you knew what God had said, he would not have stretched his hand to help God. Quote unquote, because that looked like he was helping God.
Yes.
And that is what goes wrong with us Christians today. Many Christians do not know what God says in his word. And that is why even when preachers stand there and they preach, they just take it in, they take it in. And yet the Bible also says, test even the spirits with the word. So one thing that a Christian can do, not to get discouraged in his life, is to know God and his word well. So that whenever a situation arises, he can already interpret it according to the word of God. He understands this is why it has happened. He understands this is why my prayers are not being answered like this. Like that case I gave you for an example of a young man waiting upon God for him to be blessed at 27 with a boy and then a daughter and the like. If he understood that, one, that God has not said anywhere, he has not said anywhere that I promise that at 27 you must get a partner, then he will know. God has not yet failed him, you know. But when he gets to 27, it's like there was a time they sat with God and God said, you know, by 27, I'm giving you a wife. And by the first year, you will get a son. If he recalls that God has not anywhere in his word said at 27, you see, he promises the good things, but he has not set time. Number two, God says, 100, is it 1,000 years? It's like a day. And a day is like 1,000 years. So he needs to know mathematics of God are different from his. Well, he thinks he's 27. What does God think he is? Maybe God still thinks he's 5 years old. I mean, but he's you know.
Yeah, the age to him with the calculation, the human calculation,
yes.
He feels he's mature enough for that. And maybe God is saying bado.
Bado. And, wow. and he's 27. What year is 27 the year in God's calendar? You see that kind of thing. So yes. There's so much that we don't, I mean, this young man does not know. Because if he knew, he would not set, or he would not really have that. Okay, it is good to tell God of what you want, but also leave room. Because in Deuteronomy 29:29 it says that the things that are revealed belong to us and our sons, but those that are not revealed, they belong to the Lord our God. So still he needs to know there are some things that I would need to let God have his own way and the like. So he will not get discouraged. Even if he asked if the 10th ready and he's turning 27, he will still be able to wait upon God and say, I don't know why. Sometimes I may not get an answer even when I ask God. But God in Deuteronomy tells me that there are still some things I'll not know. So, you know, that kind of thing. So it's good for a person to set the goals according to the field he's dealing with. If it is in the church and in Christian walk, please have ukuwe na wigi wa neno. Number two, prayers for a Christian, because prayers will guide him. He'll get the Rima word, and he will be able to, what do you call it? To get
walk in the ways of God.
The ways of God, and get to be guided.
Amazing.
Yes.
And we want to take a pause on that. But when we come back, there's still so much. I like the way you've talked on matters setting goals. Let us not be extreme in setting goals. Our personal goals, maybe our Christian life, our walk, our work, everything. Let's make sure whatever we are doing, at least we are not too much. You know, there's not too much of expectation, because that is where discouragement gets in. So we take a break. We'll be back with more. Stay tuned.